Hi, you're listening to Boggy Talk, Faith Conversations in the Mud, a resource of Church on Bayshore.
Hey, and welcome to Boggy Talk.
I haven't heard those words in so long, Justin.
It's so exciting to be back in Boggy Talk. We're kicking off year three of Boggy Talk, which is pretty crazy because
some of you didn't think we'd make it past episode 3,
but we did. And so for those of you who are faithful listeners who are checking in, we're thankful to be back. It's been a great summer. It's been a very busy summer for everyone, not just for us, but for a lot of people. But it's been so good, and it's kind of nice to be starting a little bit of routine-ish thing. So so if you could describe your summer in 30 seconds or less, how would you describe it? James Ross, faithful co-host and lead pastor of Church on Bayshore.
SVC, staycation, kids camps, hot, growth in the church.
Yeah.
And God's good. That's my 30 seconds.
So good. He is.
What about you? 30 seconds.
Long, hot, kids camp, student camp, Dominican Republic, mission trip, family vacation, got a puppy, which is something we said we would never, ever do in our lives. But we're just getting soft in our old age, and it's really cute. And
you are.
It's also, I think,
40-something.
It was a little bit of a God thing, like in terms of how it all came about and what we feel like it was good for our kids and some needs. Anyway,
so soak up that you are in your 40s the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, because you're about to be, boy.
3 more Boggy Talks before I'm 40.
You know what? I just think it gets better the older you get. And I feel like, you don't like to celebrate birthdays except decades, so we are going to, celebrate the decade birthday for you.
Thanks, man.
But I was like, actually, like every year, I used to kind of be that way, but now I'm like, you know what? Every year I'm like, man, I made it through another year. And I made it through a lot. It's time to celebrate.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The older you get, you're like, we better celebrate. So, hey, we're going to dive right in. And we're going to just, season 3, our year 3, we decided, let's change things up a little bit for Boggy Talk. So change it up. So here's what we're going to do.
Some of you are like,
no change. We just want to just hear whatever you want to talk about because we hang on every word you guys say. That is none of you. But we are going to change it up. And what we're going to do, we're going to try this out for the next few weeks and then hopefully work it out. We are going to spend the first part of Boggy Talk each week talking about a headline, whether it's a cultural headline, something specific to our church headline, the greater church, the kingdom, just something, or just
I have an axe to grind.
Or just something James like, we got to talk about this.
My passive aggressiveness.
That's right.
Coming out.
I can't say this on Sunday morning, but I can surely say it on Boggy Talk.
That might happen.
Yeah.
That might happen. I thank God for Boggy Talk.
That's right. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to change things up a little bit more after that. And we're going to play some kind of game each week where we plan a little game for each other to participate in. And that should be fun. And
much to your enjoyment.
That's right. So the last part is where we're calling on you, Boggy Talk listeners.
They're not a nation anymore?
No, nation. There you go. Okay. That's right. You could buy some merch later, Boggy Talk Nation.
Oh,
do some advertising.
You sound like a YouTuber,
That's
real
right.
YouTuber.
Hey, guys, if you'll just tap the screen right there, it'll link you to our...
Don't tap the screen. It's not going to work.
That's not going to work. It's going to send you somewhere else.
Yes.
But we're just questions. People are asking, listeners are asking about, hey, could y'all talk about this? Or questions we are just hearing as leaders in the church. People are, hey, what about this? And so we're gonna start all this today. So let's dive right in.
What's our headline, Justin
Our headline
Wyatt?
for today is because, some people started yesterday, some people starting tomorrow. It is back to school week, and that is literally so consuming for so many people. So it's back to school. It's happening across the nation. This morning I was like, you know what? Our house it's like summer gross. I call it summer gross. It's like we kept things clean for a while, but now I feel like everything in our house is just coated with a film of grime, and it's going to be impossible to get rid of until the kids go back to school. Yes. So in some ways I'm ready for them to go back to school. I'm not ready for them to go back to school because I was doing the math. I was like, between my 6 kids, we have 28 teachers, because 4 kids, middle school, high school,
Lord Jesus.
elementary. That's a lot of teachers.
Yeah, 4 schools here, 4
That's right.
4 schools with you as well.
It's just a lot to keep up with. And
4 schools.
Also
and 7
trying to
years
teach
ago.
your kids to be responsible for their own lives as they get older. And it's a lot to deal with. But hey, let's talk about back to school, because every year this brings back up the whole, like, should we be sending our kids to school? Should we be homeschooling? Should we be Christian schooling? And we've talked about that on Boggy Talk, and really
you can go back and listen to that.
Go back and listen to it.
We're not going to hash that out right now.
So, but what are some things that we should be thinking through for back to school beyond, how ridiculously freaking expensive it is to send your kids to school, even if they're in public school, with school supplies and shoes, and oh man, it's crazy. But what are some things that should be on our radar as we're sending our kids to school, or not just sending, maybe we're homeschooling, maybe we're sending them to Christian school, public school.
You need to pay for this online, and you cannot pay for this any other way. And we're charging a convenience fee for paying it online. I'm like, well, it's actually inconvenient that I have to pay it online because I have no other choice.
I'd rather just come by, yeah.
They're like, okay, we'll just raise the price. But anyway, yeah, I think the biggest thing that I hear at this time of year, as we send our kids back to school, is the whole idea that, God's taken out of the schools, all that stuff. Prayer isn't in schools.
Our country wouldn't be the way it is if they never would have taken prayer out of schools.
Yeah, and the truth is, I think that by and large, kind of the way the schools go are indicative of the way the culture is already going. So, as a Christian parent who does have some children so we do private school, homeschool, and public school. So we're like, that way I can make fun of everybody. That's why.
And no one can be like, our pastor just thinks this is the right. No, he's doing everything.
We do it all. But
your wife is actually.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point. I don't know. I do that school drop off, and that is sanctifying.
It is. That is one of
the
the
Lord
worst
is
parts
using
of my
it to
day.
make me more like him.
You play your favorite song, More Like Jesus, every morning in the car as you do that.
That's right. Oh, goodness. Little foreshadowing there to our game today. But but here's the reality. If Christian families are in schools, if Christians are teaching in schools and leading in schools, then God is in schools and prayer is in schools. Now, that doesn't mean that we are making everybody follow the Christian principles that we believe that attend a public school, but it certainly means that it is present in the school. So I think the bigger question is, what are we as Christians doing to live sent, as we like to say here, or if you're not familiar with our church's lingo, like to live on mission as we're doing public school? I think that's the question.
Right. Absolutely. We have to teach our kids, and as parents, be mindful that no matter where they are called to be on mission. And we as parents are ultimately not the school, we are the ones responsible for their education, and what they're learning and how they're learning. So we have to be diligent. So let's talk about that. What are some things, because there's lots to talk about the secularization of schools, and schools have, always been secular,
right?
Even when there was prayer in schools, but how do we as parents stay vigilant about what our kids are learning? And I would say, like, even sending them to Christian school isn't a guarantee that what they're learning is right. And I'm not saying that about any one Christian school in particular, because we have a great Christian school in our community. But even then, you've got teachers there who may be teaching something that's not your theological.
I'll just be blunt about this one. So I have 2 children who are at Rocky Bayou Christian School here in town, and Dr. Mosley would agree to this, and we would talk about this. And I've had to have conversations with my child about how what their teacher might say about an issue theologically is different from what I believe, and show why. Now, so I've actually had more conversations with my children at Christian school about how we believe differently than I've had to have with my kids in public school. Part of that might be one of my kids that are in Christian school is very inquisitive and has lots of questions. But you know who that is, Cameron Ross, and he wouldn't mind me saying that.
That's right. He's kind of proud of that.
Yeah, he is proud of that.
But it's a good attribute.
Yeah, no, it is. So I think, we always have to take that responsibility. And this actually connects very closely to what we talked about this past Sunday in Joshua 24 in our series. And that, we as parents have to take responsibility for our own children. And I actually quoted a guy named Dwayne Christensen that said, the continuity of faith within the context of a religious community depends on the observance of that faith within individual families. So you'll hear me really very much emphasize the collectivism of Christianity and the church. But the reality is that collective effort of the church has to teach personal responsibility of the individual families. And so if we really want to see the next generation believing the things we believe, then the parents ultimately have to take ownership of ensuring that their children are maintaining that faith in the midst of a external community that is always telling them other things.
Right. And I think as parents, we have to cultivate that in our families. We have to be the ones who set the tone for helping our kids understand they can ask us questions. So I'm curious maybe what you guys do. Maybe it's just some practical tips for parents who are like, yeah, I kind of want to know, but also, like, I don't know how to even approach this. Cause like, especially if you parent boys, I feel like they're like, hey, what'd you do at school today? Work. What'd you talk about? Math. It's like, well, how is Bible study night? Good. What you talking about? Jesus. Like,
right.
So how do you cultivate this? Like, hey, let's talk about what you're learning. And even how you turn it to like, hey, well, what do you think about that? And I think for us, it's like, it's busy. Like homework time is busy. Afternoons are busy. So we have to intentionally, hey, what are you talking about in biology? Oh, okay, cool. Well, what do you think about that? And trying to get their perspective, because they are going to be, if they're in public school, they are going to be taught things that, from a perspective that does not come from a Christian perspective. And so how, instead of just being like, well, they're wrong, they're dumb, like, let's talk about like, hey, can I explain to you how this reconciles with what Scripture teaches? And let them ask questions and let them feel okay asking questions. Because I think what happens a lot of times is families assume their kids believe the same thing that they do, and they're hitting this other message, and they're assuming that like, hey, they're just gonna be that child who stands up on their chair and is like, "You're wrong, teacher," And some kids may do that. Other kids are just gonna absorb it and try to reconcile it in their own minds, which is kind of like how I was a student. But then
we only got like 2 more minutes.
I know we got to move on, but I'm just saying, you got to ask the questions, and you got to help your kids ask questions.
No, I agree. I think a couple general principles, and again, I can't really speak to your individual situation unless I'm speaking to you individually, but it's fostering continual relationship, and I think that's one of the number one roles of a parent. I heard someone tell me that your role is like takes on the nature of king, prophet, priest. So whenever they're young, you're basically the king of their life. You tell them what to do. When they're teenagers and entering into early adulthood, you're the prophet, and you're like, okay, hey, this is going to happen if you don't do this, but they may or may not listen to you. And then when they're adults, you want to be the priest. And that means they come to you and they talk to you about things. And so, that takes a relationship. And also like you not being willing, you being willing to clearly convey where you stand. Don't seek to be your child's friend before you're their parent. Because the friendship comes with being the parent. God is God and stays steadfast, but also has a relation. We are called friends of God. So I think that's number one. I think number two, in that you have to be diligent about having time as a family. And I hear people all the time say, I just got to keep my kid busy. And so like kids are going to school and then they're doing 73 sports at a time and other activities. That's unhealthy. Like there has to be family mealtime. I'm not saying every night of the week. Right. We don't do that every night of the week. There has to be downtime.
Yes.
It's just not
Kids
healthy.
Crave it. Kids want it.
It's not healthy, and you don't foster the relationship if you're never the one engaged. And so, if you are having them busy, can you coach? Can you teach in their ministry? You need to be around and involved. And the last thing I would say is parenting beyond your capacity, having a faith community where you're not the only adult. Who that child has regular open conversations with, who shares the same viewpoint as you. And I would just say this, and I'll let you wrap this subject up. The greatest opportunity for children to adopt the beliefs of the church is through the example, encouragement of their parents in discipleship. So bringing your kids to church, dropping them off, not being engaged in it is not unhealthy. Is very likely not going to be successful.
Because they're going to repeat that.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think ultimately remembering success in school, that's a nice goal. It's not ultimate. Don't let it be an idol. Don't push your kids to this level of like, hey, let them, the goal is Jesus. The goal is them becoming who God created them to be, and their worth and really like being careful. Their worth and their identity is not in their report card. It's not in their trophies. It is in Jesus.
When you stand before Jesus, he's not going to ask what your batting average was, your 40 time was, your FSAT score was, or whatever
GPA,
that test is.
Did you get Scott? Yeah. I mean, we want those things, but also they're not ultimate. They're not ultimate. So Well, hopefully we offended everyone in that 10 minutes, but offended no one as well.
Yes.
And so now we're moving on a little game, and I'm kind of excited about this
It's
because I
game
don't
time.
really know what to expect. So we're going to do a different game every week. So what's today's game, man?
So you put me in charge today.
Woo,
and
Mr.
so
Fun.
today we have a tournament, and you can't see what's on this. And if you're listening, you definitely can't see it all. But it's 8 different songs that are awesomely cringe Christian songs. So you are going to you're going to basically pick a winner, and we're going to kind of get to the championship here. So I got to.
So am I picking the best song or the most cringy song?
You're picking. You pick what is most awesomely cringe. So it's like a balance of cringy and awesome.
Okay.
So we got 4 matchups in round 1. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay,
I'm so excited because there's an actual bracket on the sheet.
There is an actual bracket
just
here.
like the NCAA tournament.
So the first matchup is 2 90 CCM songs.
Oh man,
that are awesomely cringe. The first of which is Big House by Audio Adrenaline.
Sweet.
Because Big House by Audio Adrenaline just is so silly.
It is.
So here you go. If you don't know it.
I'm gonna do the motions, right? We had it coming. Yeah, there's motions to this song. Oh man. Oh, this is good. I have memories of this song in youth group. Doing motions. Woo! I'm dancing. Let's dance, y'all. Groove along with me.
Chorus here.
Get the shoulder going. You got to get these cued. Yeah. To my father's house. It's a big, big house. I'm doing the motions, y'all. All right. I think that's enough.
Okay. So with that song,
awesomely
the
cringe.
funny thing is like 18-year-olds are singing this song, doing it, could you imagine that today?
But also like adults were like, this is awesome.
Yeah. The bar was pretty low at that time. All right, so that's going against The Breakfast by the Newsboys.
So
here we go.
Oh, this is so cringe. Oh my gosh, I can't even I'm simultaneously crying because I'm laughing and crying because this song is so ridiculously bad.
So they don't serve breakfast in hell. So which one is more awesomely cringe? Big House?
I think this is, they're both cringe. I think this is no contest for which one is more awesomely cringe, and that is Breakfast in Hell.
All right.
I mean, if you disagree with me, you are definitively wrong.
Newsboys.
Because it literally is like trying to hey, get your life right because they don't serve breakfast in hell.
Yeah, no Captain Crunch there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, so now the next bracket, so that'll play the winner of this. Another 90s category, 90s worship songs. Woo. So awesomely cringe 90s worship songs. I'm probably going to offend some people here because you got saved listening to one of these or something. But the first is I Could Sing of Your Love Forever.
What a good song.
By Sonic Flood, because they say that so many times. So I think it's why CCM got a bad rap. Here we go.
This is a song that is, yeah. So
listen to the voice too, right?
Oh man. I hope you're laughing with us. All right, so that is the song that helped generations older than us be like, we don't like those 7-11 songs. This is literally 7 words. Yes. I could sing of your love forever.
Wow, that probably is what got it.
Yeah, and they do sing it a lot.
Okay, the next one is Trading My Sorrows.
Oh yeah.
Which actually doesn't sound bad.
So
right?
that bass lick right there. Let me tell you what, when this song came out and it started being sung, when that song started in worship, you were like, oh, we about to get our jam on, y'all.
But this is the problem.
Yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord, yes, Lord, yes, yes, Lord.
Okay,
Amen.
but I have to get to the other part that's really bad. Okay? Okay, because there's good parts. But
there's like scripture right there.
Yeah, but wait, hold on. He's like la 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 la.
That's so funny.
So you're like,
La, la,
singing
la,
this really meaningful song, and then the middle of it, you're just going la 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 la.
Which,
Okay.
like in the late 2000s worship music, it was all the O's. That gave way to the O's. So yeah, wow. So I have very distinct memories of both of these songs. In college, I'm gonna say the most cringe simply because Trading My Sorrows actually like has a good section of it that's straight scripture. I'm going to say the more cringe is I Could Sing Every Love Forever because it is pretty repetitive.
Okay.
And they talk about dancing. Like, oh, I feel like dancing.
Okay.
Which I love to dance. But
our next matchup,
anyway.
we got 2 more matchups in the first
Let's
round,
do it.
is 2000s worship songs, which I'm actually most scared of this because people
get
really
upset.
love Passion and Hillsong.
Yeah.
And
I
they
love
might get
Passion.
mad. This one is called God's Great Dance Floor by Chris Tomlin.
This is like in TV when they talk about episodes that call it like Jump the Shark.
Yeah.
I feel like this song is kind of Jump the Shark. Ooh, yeah.
Look, they're just trying to get you hyped about Jesus. Here we go. Hold on.
Get the dad
Hold
moves.
on.
I'm getting the dad moves
He's
going.
about to hype you up. You ready? Here it is.
Come on.
Yep.
Oh, that's hype. Man, everybody is jumping up and down right now. The strobe lights are going. Come on. It is. Wow. Never ending build. Oh, there's the drop, man. Crank the bass on that.
God's Great Dance Floor.
God's Great Dance Floor.
Okay, all right.
Man.
That is against this song called Happy Day by Steve Fee, which...
Oh, man. That's a good one.
no, it's not. No, it's not. Hold on. Let me find it.
Again.
iTunes is trying to hide it from me. Here
I
we
can
go.
just sing it for everybody. Oh, yeah. That guitar lead.
It doesn't even have lyrics.
Sing it out. Jesus is alive.
Isn't that like so late 2000s?
It is absolutely.
But we haven't lost our CPM roots, so you got to say this.
Watch my sin away. Oh, happy day. Happy day. Never be the same.
And
That is
it's
like.
by Fee, which is a little...
Well, it actually was originally written by a guy named Tim Hughes, who's
Oh, okay.
Australian. And
Oh,
so,
yeah, I'm familiar with him.
Americans, we're like suckers for anybody with an accent. Oh, it's amazing. They have an accent.
All right, which one?
I think definitely, hands down, the more awesomely cringe of those is God's Great Dance
Okay,
Floor.
all right.
Because I was actually at Passion the year they like introduced that song, and I just remember like even like the college students after we left were like, "What was that?"
Okay,
It was just misfire.
well, if you're a traditionalist here and you're like, yeah, this modern music stinks, this last category is for you.
All right.
2 awesomely cringe hymns. I'm going to start with Onward Christian Soldiers
Oh, you about to defend
because
people.
when you hear the lyrics of this, you're thinking, we're crusading. Like, did we learn anything?
Cutting throats
and you got kids singing it. So that captures it.
That's
fully.
kind of like, isn't that like a tactic that like the Nazis
Yes.
used? Like, we get children to sing our songs, and then it's palatable. Sorry, that I really offended somebody
Yes,
by
you
comparing.
did.
I really don't mean that, but I kind of did.
It does. You.
It has a very patriotic feel too.
Yes. You don't think of real spiritual warfare here in that song.
No, you think of like
war.
artillery and tanks.
You think of we're going to kill the Muslims if they come
That's
into
what
our
it
country,
sounds like.
you know.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay. Which, hey, I'm not getting into the political war
Yeah,
part.
yeah.
I'm just like, we shouldn't be singing that in worship. All right. And then the last would be Bringing in the Sheaves, which is hands down the worst hymn ever written.
Wow. Okay.
Because I don't even think people knew what it really meant
What is
when
a
it was
sheaf?
originally meant. It's in the scripture,
Yeah.
Bringing in the Sheaves, but in the King James. Anyway, here it is in case you're unfamiliar with it.
I feel like you have to do your hands like up like
Yes.
this when you sing this.
Do you?
You have to.
I didn't grow up in church, so yeah. All right, so which
Okay.
one?
Wow, that's hard. Simply because I feel like right now it's really culturally like who knows what they're even saying is bring in the sheaves.
All right.
All right.
Okay. So going to the next round. Before we go to the next round, a word from our sponsor. Oh wait, we don't have sponsors.
Oh,
okay,
that could
all right.
be you.
No, I was going to say. So there are worse CCM songs and hymns, but I pick ones that like people actually somewhat sing, like we're taken seriously.
Yeah.
Like I could have put "Champion" by Carmen on there, but come on, that's too easy.
Everybody knows.
That's going to win. So make it onto the final four here.
Okay.
Just going again, and I don't really need to explain them that much again, but I'm going to play them so people remember. Is "Breakfast" by the Newsboys.
Man.
So let's get to the.
They don't serve Captain Crunch in hell. All right.
When the big one finds you.
The big one. This. All right.
Hold on. Listen, you got to listen. When the toast is burned is what he's about to say.
When the toast is burning and the sun.
That's too long of an instrumental break.
Yeah. You lost people.
I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah, it's long.
But listen, they're whistling.
Wow, there's whistling too. Oh man. We have just upped the cringe factor.
Okay, it says when the toast is burned and all the milk is turned and Captain Crunch is waving farewell. When the big one finds you,
that's when you're like, I know they're a Christian band, but were they high when they wrote that?
Yeah, they probably deconstructed. They did deconstruct.
Did they? Probably so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when everybody stopped making money off of this, they started.
Yeah, they're like, oh man.
Okay, and then again. This is hard. I could sing of your love forever.
Okay, I think this one's easy. You don't even have to play it. I think everybody knows. Over the mountains and the seas, most cringe, more cringe. Definitely, if you disagree with me on this, you're wrong. More cringe is Breakfast.
All right.
That is so cringe.
When do they hit that falsetto though? Can you do that? And all of us in there are like trying it, like we're like, oh, good. Okay, we all sound like we're grown men. We sound like pubescent boys,
right.
like trying to sing.
That's the style, right?
But you can do it, so
you know.
Okay, and then we're back to God's Great Dance Floor versus Bringing in the Sheaves.
Okay, I think I can make this decision.
You don't even need to hear it.
I don't even need to hear it, simply because there is like an actual like biblical allusion in Bringing in the Sheaves. I'm going with God's Great Dance Floor.
But listen, instrumental, just like Newsboys. And then he says this. You got to pay attention. Ready? He says, 1, 2, 3. You'll never stop loving us.
Yeah.
Oh, another instrumental break.
Yeah, there's a lot. Okay. Also, when they did this song at Passion, there's a trumpet part, and they actually brought out a man who is Hispanic in like a mariachi suit. I don't know that he was Mexican, so I can't say that because he was far away. And it was like totally like, what in the world is happening? So definitely.
Can we hear a different version of Bringing the Sheaves before you do that, though?
Sure. Oh, just to appreciate the goodness.
You know they had Fifth Sundays doing this here at First Baptist Church of Niceville.
I mean, they've got good voices.
They do have good voices.
Yeah.
So does Tomlin. Okay, so you said God's Great Dance Floor?
God's Great Dance Floor.
Okay, so our final here is Breakfast and God's Great Dance Floor.
So I am curious. I'm curious what people out there think. Even though we're recording this, there's no way to find this out ahead of what I'm about to say. So I'm giving you like 5 seconds to like put a comment on YouTube or send us a text or a message. Be like, I thought you were going to say this. Woo, this is hard. This is like, what do you like more? Getting your tooth filled or getting stitches? It's
he likes to fit the phrase "let the future begin" in as many songs as possible.
Let the future begin. It has begun. So I'm gonna say.
Hold on, sorry.
Oh, you ready? Are you ready for my answer?
Well, I'm trying not to have music going.
My mind is made up.
I know what you're gonna pick, so I'm queuing it up.
God's Great Dance Floor.
Is this your winner?
This is my winner for maybe one of the most cringe songs ever written. Breakfast by the Newsboys. Also by one of the cringiest bands too, but who are very talented.
Hold the milk, put back the sugar.
Come on, y'all. That is...
They're powerless to console. We've gathered here to sprinkle ashes from your friends, your late friend's cereal bowl.
Oh my gosh.
You will lose it in your gym class if you wait till noon to eat. What?
Every Monday, Aloft. They were hard up for a rhyme there.
Look. Read that one.
Ain't stop waving. Compose this tune. Man, okay, enough. Wow.
It's basically like saying that he's like the rich man.
Yeah.
Like on his way to hell. And he, gosh.
That's
All
just
right,
terrible.
Breakfast by Newsboys.
So there's your my definitive selection of the worst, most cringe song of those 8 songs. But really, that one actually could take the cake for.
I think we took way too long with that. But
yeah, that's okay. But I'm sure people have either listened and laughed or just skipped to the next part.
Yes. So questions.
So here we go. So we're going to wrap it up today with questions that we're getting. And so really, we're going to take this opportunity to answer a couple of questions we've gotten from some of the stuff we've talked about on Sundays, going through the book of Mark with end times. And then also really of this past week, introducing intergenerational discipleship, what it means to be an intergenerational church. So I've been gone because I was in the Dominican Republic and then
Nice.
Vacation on a mission trip. And so I haven't actually gotten a lot of questions recently because
What exactly do you do here?
Yeah.
That's what
people
you
are like,
asked.
a lot.
Yeah, so with the end of time, I'll go from chronologically. So we did a series called
End of the World as We Know It, and I Feel Fine.
And I really explained how there's an error and really looking for figuring out when Jesus comes back. And several people were like, well, are there scriptures that say, look for these signs and then you will know? And again, I think just a simple answer to that is one, a lot of what I think Jesus was talking about were to his disciples about things that were about to come to prepare them for the tribulation. And by being prepared for that tribulation, they then were ready to live out their faith, and they did advance the faith. And today, we're the largest religion from 120 people. And I think a lot of what Jesus was saying to that was that. But he does give us some insight into the things to come. And I think that ultimately, we can't figure out when. So if we were trying to study and say, are these indicative? I think that the end result is the same, that we're to be faithful and live as if he could come back tomorrow either way. I do think that when it is those days, it won't be like, oh, is this it? I think we'll be like, oh, it's coming. You know what I mean? This is clear. And I just think people want to get distracted by those things. And so, my ultimate thing would be file them kind of in the back of our mind, like secondary information, but always focus on primary information. And when people are becoming obsessed with that and studying scripture and literally, I mean, I'm going to say this like John Hagee is a false prophet. He has said when the world was going to end.
Yeah, that's wrong.
So the fact that he still has a mega church is just crazy to me.
Yeah.
I'm sure the church does a lot of great things, but unless he's repented of that, and I don't know that he has, we shouldn't listen to that guy anymore.
Yeah.
Or anyone. He's the popular one, but anybody.
Right.
So
lots of predictions about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last week at the end of worship team rehearsal, we were praying for each other, and somebody just shared this. Lindy Hayes actually shared this, and it was just good. She was like talking about what we've been talking about on Sunday mornings, and there were just some heavy requests that people shared, and she was just like, I just want to exhort everybody, like what we've been talking about on Sundays, like in light of all that we're all going through, like we are called to live in light of Christ's return.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
And so we've got to walk in a manner worthy of the calling. And it was just a great reminder, like the more prosperous we are as a people, the easier it is to be like, I'm kind of good with him not coming back for a while. But we've got to be ready, and we should live with that intentionality. So that's good.
So then the other question I've been asked the last 2 weeks is kind of like people who are totally on board with this intergenerational discipleship concept. If you're not a part of our church, what we're talking about is making sure that we do as best we can to have older generations teaching the younger generations. And so most of our church is like, I'm in. What do I do?
Yeah, how do we do this? That's what everybody's kind of like, okay, great. Yeah, now what are we doing?
And in fairness, the first week we really just kind of introduced the concept, and that was the point, like get you on board, with not because we think it's good, because it's clear in scripture and clear in church history.
And I think as a church, we have very action-oriented people as a whole. So they're like, okay, great. Now what do I do?
Yeah, give me 3 steps.
Yeah.
Give me 3 steps. Oh, that's a Leonard Skinner song. But anyway, that is not as cringy as the songs we just listened to. Then this past week, was intentional where we were saying, okay, that's cool that you want to do stuff, but don't forget, like ultimately, if you're not taking responsibility for your family, then what you're trying to reproduce in other families is not going to be what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, what has taught me the most about discipling and leading other men is having young men in my home, honestly.
Yeah.
And so I think that, that's a lot of why God says the things he says about managing your own household and specifically with leaders of the church. But I will say we are going to be walking you through some of our strategy and ideas in the coming weeks. But ultimately, I think it's the recognition that this is God's design, and then being intentional about trying to connect with younger people, or as a younger person, be intentional about trying to connect with older people, and like just pushing past the awkwardness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's fine. Like people push past awkwardness all the time to get a return, at the store,
Right.
like because they got ripped off or,
Yeah.
to whatever. So like, why don't we do that for the things Jesus has commanded us to do? That's what ultimately I would say. But we will be talking more about some practical things we're going to do here.
Yeah, I think you're making a great point. So there's some of this that we do as a church need to quote unquote program and help people.
Right.
But the other piece of this is like, what am I supposed to do with this? Well, you're supposed to orient your lives this way.
Yeah.
And we can't like prescribe there's not necessarily a program for that, but how are you orienting your life and your family's life towards this? And that's like, you got to figure that out as a family, as an individual, as a person. How am I orienting my life towards intergenerational living and discipleship? So any other questions?
No, I would just shout out and say, if you have a question for us, you can email either of us, talk to either of us.
Yes.
Or comment, on Boggy Talk link, and we will include those in
and it
future
can be
episodes.
about anything like, hey, what's going on with this? Where are we headed in this direction?
Why do you hate the Newsboys?
That's right. They have some other good songs, but really like, what are we doing? What's our strategy for missions, or all those things.
What do we
you
think
can ask
about
us.
unicorns?
Unicorns. I used
Did Adam and Eve have a belly button?
all those things you've been wanting to ask. So,
yes.
We'll. In the future, the game will take a little less time, and there'll be a little longer time for questions.
Maybe.
But that's because we are now, just for the first time this season, asking for questions. So,
Justin's got the game next week. So.
I got the game next week, which means I got to plan the game. So I will be doing that.
You have a full week.
It's right. It's going to be a busy week too. So, hey, again, send us questions. We thank you so much for tuning in to Year 3, Episode 1. You've made it this far. Tune in next week.
Thanks for listening to Boggy Talk. We are so glad you joined in the conversation. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss a beat.